My name is Clara. I thought I had everything, but one night changed my life forever. I was lying in bed, pretending to be asleep. I heard the bedroom door open slowly. It wasn't my husband Julian alone. I heard a woman's whisper. Is she sleeping? It was Mia, my best friend. My heart stopped. I felt a cold shiver down my spine. This was the person I trusted with my children and my home. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just listened in the dark. I knew my world was breaking apart. I am a successful event designer. In my business, people call me an Iron Woman. I am proud of my work. I organize big events in cities like New York and Tokyo. I have a beautiful home and 2 wonderful children. They are my world. Mia has been my best friend since our university days. However, her life is very different from mine. She works in a small office and struggles with a low salary. Because I loved her, I wanted to help. When I traveled for work, Mia stayed at my house. She cooked dinner for my husband, Julian. She took my children to school every morning. I felt so lucky to have such a loyal friend. I gave her expensive designer bags and jewelry. I also sent her a lot of money to say thank you for her help. I trusted her with my keys and my heart, but I was blind. I didn't know that Mia was watching me with deep envy. She didn't want my gifts. She wanted my soul. She looked at Julian and made a big mistake. She thought Julian was the secret reason for my success. Mia whispered to herself, Julian is the real brain behind this empire. She truly believed that if she had Julian, she would have my money and my fame. She used my children as a mask to come to my house every day. She smiled at Julian while I was away. She sat in my chairs and drank my wine. I thought she was helping me, but she was trying to replace me. I was too busy working to see the danger. I was building a future, while she was stealing my present. One night, I came home from a long flight from Tokyo. I was exhausted. I went to bed early and closed my eyes. Julian thought I was fast asleep, but I was not. I heard him walk slowly to the balcony. He was talking on his phone in a very low voice. I listened carefully. I heard him say, I will tell her soon. You take better care of the children than she does. My heart began to beat fast. I felt a sharp, stinging pain in my chest. I stared at the ceiling in the dark room. I whispered to myself, who is he talking to? My hands were shaking under the heavy blanket. I took a deep breath to stay quiet. I did not move. I just listened to the silence of the night. The next morning, Mia arrived at our house very early. She brought beautiful cupcakes for my children. She smiled like an angel. She looked at me and said, Clara, you look so tired. You should just go to work and let me handle everything here. Julian needs someone who understands him, not just someone who goes to meetings all day. For a moment, I thought she was being kind. I felt a small sense of relief. I thought her help was a gift. But then, I saw the way she looked at my kitchen. She looked at the walls as if she already owned them. I felt a strange, cold chill. I took a deep sigh and tried to smile back at her. Days passed. I began to pay attention to every small detail. I noticed changes in my own home. A new painting was on the wall. Mia had moved my favorite vase to a dark corner. Even Julian's dinner menu was different now. Mia was slowly changing my home. One evening, we were all together in the living room. Mia looked at Julian with admiration. She said, Julian, you are so smart. If you didn't help her, Clara's company would not be this big. I waited for Julian to defend me. I waited for him to say I worked hard for 10 years alone to build my business. I felt my heart sink into my stomach. But Julian did not say anything to protect me. He just nodded his head. He smiled at Mia. He looked very proud of himself. It seemed that Mia's words were like poison. She was feeding his ego every single day. I felt my stomach turn. Julian looked like he believed his own lie. He looked like he believed he was the brain behind my success. I looked at my husband's face. He felt like a complete stranger to me. My throat was dry. I couldn't speak a single word. I took a deep sigh and walked to the kitchen alone. I whispered to myself, "They think I see nothing." A week later, I had another business trip. I told them I would be away for 3 days, but I had a secret plan. I decided to finish my work early and come back without calling. I wanted to see the truth with my own eyes. I wanted to see what the second mother and the perfect husband did when I was not there. My heart was heavy, like a stone. I packed my small bag. My hands were cold and stiff. I felt that my life was about to change forever. I looked at my children playing and felt a wave of sadness. I whispered to myself, "I will protect you, no matter what." I walked out the door and did not look back. I felt a surge of cold courage. The game was just beginning. It was exactly 2 p.m. when I arrived home. I saw Mia's car parked in the driveway. I felt a cold shiver down my spine. I did not want them to see me or hear my footsteps. I walked quietly to the back door and used my secret key. I whispered to myself, "Be brave, Clara. You must find the truth today." I walked on the soft carpet toward my home office. My hands were shaking. I stood behind the door and looked through a small opening. I knew my life was about to change forever. I saw Mia. She was sitting in my expensive leather chair. She was holding my Businesswoman of the Year trophy. It was a beautiful, shining gold cup. She was smiling at her reflection in the gold medal. I felt a surge of pure anger. Julian was standing behind her. He was hugging her waist and kissing her shoulder. I felt my stomach turn. Then, I heard Mia's voice. She sounded so different. Her voice was full of greed. She said, "Julian, when we get married, will you help me be successful like Clara? You are the real brain of this company, aren't you?" I thought about the 10 years I spent building my business from nothing. I remembered the nights I cried from stress and the many hours I worked alone. My heart broke. Julian laughed softly. He looked at Mia with loving eyes. He said, "Of course, my love. Clara is not actually smart. Every good idea she ever had came from me. I will make you a real queen." I knew then that my husband was a thief. He was stealing my hard work to impress my best friend. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I leaned against the cold wall. Tears ran down my face, but I did not make a sound. I took a deep sigh to stop myself from shouting. I stood there in the dark shadows for a long moment. The air felt very heavy. Everything was silent. I felt a strange, cold strength growing in my soul. I realized I was not a victim. I was a lioness. I was ready to protect my children and my life. I stepped out from behind the heavy curtain. I clapped my hands slowly. The sound was loud and sharp in the quiet office. "What a wonderful plan," I said. I looked at their shocked faces. A thief meets a liar. It is a perfect match. Mia's face became very pale. She was so terrified that she let go of my gold trophy. The heavy cup fell to the floor with a loud, metallic crash. It rolled toward my feet. I did not move. Julian jumped back, away from Mia. His eyes were wide with fear. I felt a cold shiver of anger, but I stood tall. I whispered to myself, "The truth is finally out in the light." I walked toward my desk. I knew I was strong. I looked Julian directly in his eyes. He tried to look away at the floor. "So, Julian," I said. My voice was calm and cold. "You think you are the brain behind my company? You told her every good idea was yours?" I laughed. but it was a sad, hollow sound. My heart broke again as I looked at the man I once loved. I thought he was my partner, my support. I knew now that he was just a shadow living in my light. I said, "If you are the real brain, Julian, then prove it to the world." Julian opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He looked small and weak. I turned my eyes to Mia. She was trembling. Her hands were shaking as she tried to fix her hair. I felt no pity for her anymore. I whispered to myself, "I gave you my trust, my money, and my home, and you tried to take my life." I smiled at her, but my eyes were like ice. "Mia," I said, "you want Julian because you think he made me successful? You want the man who supposedly built my empire?" I took a deep sigh. I knew my own value now. I said, "Please, take him. He is yours. I want to see if a failed architect can turn a lazy office worker into a businesswoman. I want to see if his brain can build anything at all without my money and my 10 years of hard work." Mia looked at Julian, and Julian looked at the broken trophy on the floor. The silence in the room was heavy and suffocating. I felt a surge of cold courage in my soul. I took a deep breath and felt the air fill my lungs. My hands were no longer shaking. I thought about my children and knew I had to be strong for them. I whispered to myself, "This is the end of the lie." I turned my back on them and walked toward the door. I knew I would never look back. I opened my bag and took out a thick envelope. It was the divorce papers I had already signed. I felt a surge of cold power. I pushed the papers toward Julian. "Sign them," I said. My voice was firm and steady. Julian's hands were shaking as he looked at the documents. I knew he was trapped. I had proof that I owned every house, every car, and every contract. I also showed him another document. It was a list of his past financial mistakes. For years, I had covered his debts to protect him. I whispered to myself, "I was so blind to your greed." Julian owed the company a large amount of money. Mia looked at the papers, and her eyes went wide. I felt a cold satisfaction as I watched her expression change. She realized Julian had no power. He was not the brain behind the business. He was just a man with a mountain of debt. "Julian, you are fired," I said, "and you both must leave my house now." Mia stepped away from him. I saw how her fake love disappeared instantly. She didn't want him anymore. She only wanted my money. I thought about how our marriage was built on lies. I realized I should not have ignored the little signs. My heart broke for the lost time, but I felt a sense of justice. Julian looked at the floor in shame. I took a deep sigh of relief. I knew my broken heart had made me stronger. I noticed small things about them that I should have seen before. "Leave," I whispered. They walked out in total silence. I felt the air become light again. I went home and saw my 2 children. I pulled them into my arms and held them tight. I felt their small hearts beating against my chest. Tears ran down my face, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of freedom. I spoke to them in a very gentle voice. I explained that their father would live in a different place now. I knew it would be hard, but it was necessary for our peace. I walked through my big house. It felt different now. I whispered to myself, "I have lived with trash for too long." I thought about how Mia and Julian had used me, but now they were gone. The rooms were very quiet, but this was not a lonely silence. It was a silence full of strength and peace. I realized that a home is not just walls. It is the energy and the love inside. I felt a new sense of value. I took a deep sigh and looked at the garden outside. I knew I could build my life again. My true home was now inside my own heart. I was finally awake. 1 year passed quickly. I worked harder than ever before. My business grew, and I expanded to 3 new international branches. I felt proud of my own strength and intelligence. One afternoon, I was walking past a small, cheap cafe in the city. Suddenly, I saw them. It was Julian and Mia. My heart stopped for a second. Then I took a deep sigh. They looked so different. Julian looked old and very tired. Mia looked pale and full of regret. They were arguing loudly over a small water bill on the table. I stood still for a moment and watched them. I knew they were unhappy. Mia once thought that Julian was the brain behind my success. She thought she could take my life by taking my husband. But now, she knew the truth. Julian could not build anything without me. I felt a wave of peace in my heart. I whispered to myself, I am finally free from their shadows. Julian saw me through the window. His eyes were full of sadness and shame. He tried to stand up, but I did not stop. I knew my true value now. I walked toward my luxury car and felt the warm sun on my face. My success came from my own mind and my years of hard work. No one could ever steal that from me again. I sat in my car and drove away into my new life. I did not look back. I realized that my future was shining bright. I whispered to myself, I built this empire alone. True success comes from your own hard work, not from the person you stand next to. Envy is a blind emotion. It makes you want a life you didn't build. Be careful who you let into your home and your heart while you are busy shining. A strong woman can always build her life again. This story reflects a common reality in our modern world. Envious people often hate your success. They have always thought that success is just luck, or they have believed that someone else created it for you. Like Mia, they imagine your life is easy to take, but they do not see the years of hard work behind your glow. I have learned 3 important lessons from my journey. First, financial and legal independence is your ultimate shield. You must always keep your documents and money in your own name. I have discovered that self-protection is necessary for every woman. Second, you must set clear boundaries. Never let a friend take over your role at home. This prevents them from trying to replace you. Third, always be proud of your achievements. Never let a partner say they are the brain behind your work. You have built your empire with your own mind. I know now that my strength is real. Finally, choose your friends carefully. A true friend has always celebrated your light. Also, choose a partner who respects your value. A husband should support you, not feel jealous of you. A strong woman has already found her power. You are enough. What would you do if you were Clara? Please comment strong if you would divorce your husband immediately. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more emotional stories.